Liza's needle pierced the velvet cloak one final time, her fingers steady despite the tremor in her chest, when the throne room doors crashed open. 5 winters of stitching shadows into silence, hiding the pale claws that itched beneath her skin, the white fur she'd buried deeper than her pack's betrayal, shattered in an instant. Captain Merc Soren's iron grip clamped her arm, hauling her from the alcove where nobles pretended not to notice the low-born seamstress. "Move," Merc growled low, his breath hot against her ear, eyes flicking to the raised dais ahead. The throne room pulsed with vampiric chill, crystal chandeliers dripping light like congealed blood over a sea of silk and fangs. Liz dug her heels into the marble, heart slamming. "No, I'm no Lycan spy. Let me go." The visiting envoy from the Silverfang pack loomed at the throne's foot, his muzzle scarred and twitching, yellow eyes raking the assembled court. "Allegiances fracture like dry bone," he snarled, voice echoing off vaulted ceilings. "Your king's court harbors traitors. Prove them or we walk and the borders bleed." King Victor Aelor sat unmoving on his obsidian throne, a statue carved from night itself, his crimson gaze slicing through the tension like a blade. Whispers rippled, like an envoys demanding loyalty tests, forcing shifts from any with the scent of wolf on them. Liz had scrubbed hers away nightly, diluted her blood with herbs, sewn her uniforms loose to hide the unnatural gleam in her veins. But now eyes turned, hungry, calculating. Lady Alara Voss, the manipulative noble whose gown Liz had mended that morning, stepped forward with a serpent's smile. Her lace-gloved hand gestured sharply. "This one, Captain, the seamstress. She's evaded the registry since her arrival. Force the shift, prove her clean or condemn her." Liz wrenched against Merc's hold, nails biting into his wrist. "Liz, I've served here 5 years, mending your tears, not plotting your wars." Her voice cracked, but she held Victor's stare, refusing the bow that could save her neck. The king's face was a mask of glacial control, but something flickered in those ancient eyes, hunger, pity. She couldn't trust it. Trust had sold her to this court once before. Alara's laugh cut like glass. "Resist, and it's treason. Shift, mongrel, or my guards gut your little sewing kit, and the orphan brat you feed scraps in the servant's wing." The threat landed like fangs in flesh. Little Tomas, the mute waif she'd shielded from beatings, flashed in her mind. Liz's breath hitched, wolf rising unbidden, claws pricking her palms. Merc's grip tightened, not cruel but unyielding, his jaw set. "Do it, girl, or they will." No choice. Not with the court circling, envoys snarling, Victor's silence a death sentence waiting. Liz staggered to the throne room center, the marble cold under her knees. Power imbalance screamed in every glance, the vampire's effortless grace, their eternal youth mocking her fragile human shell. She wouldn't beg. Stubborn fire burned through terror as she forced the change, muscles ripping, bones grinding in a symphony of agony. White fur erupted, blinding as fresh snow, her form swelling into the massive white wolf she'd caged for survival. Gasps tore through the hall. The envoy recoiled, hackles rising. White wolf, prophesied killer, weapon of the old packs. Liz's wolf snarled, golden eyes locked on Victor, hackles raised against the urge to cower. The shift exposed everything. The shame of her alpha blood, sold out by her pack leader to vampire slavers 5 years ago. She'd hidden to live, not to be paraded like this. Paws scraped marble, tail lashing, every instinct screaming to lunge or flee, but she held, trembling, refusing to bow even on all fours. Alara's voice rose triumphant. "Execute her, before she turns on us all." Murmurs swelled into a roar, nobles clamoring for blood, guards drawing silvered blades. Merc stepped between them and Liz, hand on his sword, his broad frame a temporary wall. "Hold, the king's word." Victor's voice silenced them like a thunderclap, deep and resonant, carrying the weight of centuries. "Enough!" He rose, black cloak pooling like ink, descending the dais with predatory grace. The court froze, air thickening with his presence. Liza's wolf whined low, instincts warring, fear of the alpha vampire king, whose bite could unmake souls, and a traitorous pull toward his unyielding strength. He stopped paces away, close enough she smelled leather and storm-scented blood. His eyes, red as heart's core, bored into hers, not with revulsion but a piercing intensity that stole her breath. For a heartbeat, the throne room vanished. It was just them, power crashing against her defiance. He extended a hand, palm up, no command in the gesture, but the expectation hung heavy. Shift back. Submit. Liza's wolf held, muscles quivering. No, she wouldn't bare her throat without consent, without choice. Victor's jaw tightened imperceptibly, a flicker of something raw, loneliness, crossing his features before the mask snapped back. "Captain Sorin," Victor said, voice low thunder, "take her to the royal apartments. She is under my personal custody." "No one touches her without my leave." Chaos erupted. Ilara sputtered, "Majesty, a white wolf." "Silence, Lady Voss." Victor's gaze flicked to her, cold as grave dirt. "Or join her in chains." The envoy growled but backed away, sensing the shift in winds. Merchold lies upright as the wolf receded in a haze of pain, her human body slumping naked and shivering against him. He shrugged off his cloak, draping it over her without a word, his touch brusque but shielding. Lies clutched the fabric, legs buckling as Merc half-carried her from the hall. Whispers chased them, treason, favoritism, the king's hidden weakness. Victor's protection sowed seeds of danger, nobles plotting, envoys withdrawing pledges, her white wolf now a court spectacle. But in the blur of marble corridors, one thought burned. Why spare her? What price would the starving king demand? Merc shoved open a side door to the royal wing, the air warmer here, scented with beeswax and old books. "Stay quiet," he muttered, depositing her in a guarded antechamber. "He's not merciful by habit." His eyes held a haunted glint, memories of rebellions crushed, perhaps, before he turned to post sentries. Alone, Lies sank against the wall, cloak clutched tight. 5 years of invisibility gone. The king's command echoed, custody not death. Entanglement. Her stubborn heart raced, refusing the fear, clinging to moral ground even as politics closed in. Victor Ayler feared nothing, except maybe the connection he just chained himself to. Footsteps echoed from deeper halls. Not Merc's, heavier, hers. The door to the inner apartments creaked open, and there stood Ivo, the king's mute ward, small frame dwarfed by the threshold. His wide eyes fixed on her, unblinking, clutching a wooden wolf carving. No fear, just curiosity. He toddled forward, offering it silently, as if sensing her fracture. Lies took it, fingers numb, the gesture cracking her defenses. Found family in a viper's nest. Or bait. Before she could retreat, Victor's shadow filled the doorway behind the boy. "Ivo," he said softly, lifting the child one-armed, but his gaze never left Lies. Tension coiled, breath catching, the power between them a live wire. "You will not run," he stated, not a question. Protective instinct warred in his stance, but she saw the crack, the loneliness starving beneath the crown. She lifted her chin, voice hoarse. "And if I refuse your cage?" His lips twitched, almost a smile. "Then the court devours us both." Confusion reigned outside. He'd bought her time, but at what cost? Envoys stormed from the palace, nobles schemed in shadows, and Liza's wolf whispered of old prophecies weaponizing her kind. Victor's choice entangled them, forcing a reckoning. Change the rules or crush beneath them. Her hand tightened on the carving, Ivo's warmth a fragile bridge. As the king's gaze lingered, sharp, immediate staking claims neither could ignore. Captain Merc's iron grip clamped Liza's arm, hauling her back from the throne room's arched threshold just as the lichen envoy's snarls echoed down the corridor. "Not yours to claim," Victor declared from the dais, his voice a blade slicing through the uproar, eyes locked on her even as he addressed the pack leader's retreating fury. Lies twisted against Merc's hold, her pulse hammering, safety in these walls. It reeked of chains. "You'll stay under palace watch," Victor continued, descending the steps with predatory grace, courtiers parting like mist. His gaze pinned her, unblinking, as if she were the only threat in the room. "Captain Sorin has custody. No envoy touches her until I say." Merrick's fingers tightened fractionally, a warning she ignored. "Let go," she hissed, voice low but laced with venom, refusing to crane her neck toward the king. The air thickened with noble whispers, asterisk white wolf, abomination, leverage asterisk. But she stared at the flagstones, breath ragged, wolf coiling tight inside her skin. 5 years of hiding, undone in one forced shift, and now this. Caged by the vampire who ruled with blood oaths and midnight executions. Victor's boots halted inches away, the scent of aged leather and faint copper, his hunger, always leashed, flooding her senses. "Speak your protest here, seamstress. Or do you prefer the cells?" She jerked her chin up then, but not to meet his eyes, straight to the cluster of velvet-clad lords pressing closer, their fangs glinting in torchlight. "Public lesson," she spat, testing the boundary, voice carrying over the murmurs. "That's your justice. Parade the freak for sport like the old kings did. I've sewn your court's finery, seen the stains you hide. Cage me if you must, but don't pretend it's mercy." Gasps rippled out. A duchess in crimson sneered, "Insolence merits the pyre majesty. White wolves breed chaos, prophecies demand it." "Execution," echoed a baron, fist raised, the call swelling as others joined, a tide of bloodlust crashing toward her. Liza's wolf snarled inwardly, hackles rising, but Merck shifted, subtle, decisive, stepping between her and the advancing nobles, his broad frame a wall. "By the king's word," he growled, hand on his sword hilt, voice gravel rough from old scars. "Custody means alive, back off." The baron faltered, but Victor didn't intervene. His silence stretched heavy until the murmurs died under his stare. Liza's chest heaved, the fragile debt forming unbidden, Merrick's intervention buying her breath, even as his grip bruised. "Why?" The captain's face stayed stone, but his eyes flicked to hers once, assessing, before returning to the crowd. "Escort her to the seamstress quarters," Victor ordered finally, turning away with a swirl of his cloak, but not before his gaze dragged over her again, lingering, claiming. "Close watch, Captain. No visitors without my seal." Merrick nodded curtly, propelling her through side doors into the labyrinthine halls, away from prying eyes. Liz stumbled once, knees weak from the shift's toll, but bit back any plea. "You didn't have to step in," she muttered as they climbed a spiral stair, torches guttering in drafts that smelled of stone and secrets. "King's orders," Merrick replied flatly, but his pace slowed on the landing, giving her a moment to steady. "Doesn't mean I let them gut you for sport. Debt or not, you're under my guard now." She shot him a glare, rubbing her arm where his fingers had been. "Guard or jailer, both." His mouth twitched, almost a smirk, gone in an instant. "Survive it." He left her at the seamstress wing's heavy oak door, her old domain, now a gilded prison with wards etched into the frame, humming against her wolf's senses. Inside, bolts of silk lay undisturbed, her needles glinting like accusations. Liz sank onto the stool, carving still clutched from Ivo's earlier gift, a tiny wooden wolf, rough but warm from small hands. The boy's mute presence in the chaos had been her anchor, his wide eyes unjudging amid the storm. Footsteps padded outside hours later, soft, hesitant. Liz tensed, hand on a shears, but the door creaked open unattended, a slot at the base admitting a folded scrap of parchment and a fresh pear, stem carved with tiny runes. "Ivo." She snatched them up, heart twisting. The boy hovered in the hall's shadow when she peered out, his thin frame swallowed by an oversized tunic, dark curls falling over silent eyes that locked on hers with eerie knowing. He pointed to his ear, then hers, asterisk wolf quiet asterisk, mimicking her suppressed stillness before vanishing like smoke. Liz ate the pear slowly, juice sharp on her tongue, unfolding the note in his careful scrawl. "Safe here. V says so. A child's faith or the king's whisper. She tucked it beside the carving, the tokens piling like unspoken pleas. Soft audience, indeed, drawing her into fractures she couldn't afford. Dawn bled gray through barred windows when Merrick returned, face grim. Council convenes. Your fate's on the table. They marched her to the grand chamber, courtiers already baying. The white wolf's blood could bind lichen borders. One envoy's sympathizer argued. Weaponize her, prophecies favor our house. Or destroy her before she unravels the court, countered another, fear twisting their loyalty. Lies stood rigid beside Merrick, refusing Victor's throne-perched stare, but felt it bore into her, starved, searching. He raised a hand, silencing the roar. Valuable, yes, but no swift end. His voice cut like frost. Slow investigation. Interrogate her history, test her shifts under guard. She remains palace ward, weapon if she proves it, leverage regardless. Murmurs exploded, approval laced with greed, but Victor leaned forward, eyes finally trapping hers. Understood, seamstress. My roof, my rules. She swallowed the rail, burning her throat, chin lifting despite the quake in her limbs. Your cage, she said quietly for his ears alone, but not your slave. A flicker crossed his face, hunger or something rower gone as Merrick pulled her back. The court declared her politically untouchable yet pivotal, a living gambit in their endless games. Ward and weapon both. Ivo's tokens waited in her pocket, Merrick's dead a thin shield, but Victor's gaze followed her retreat, heavy as a vow. In the seamstress quarters that night, Lies traced the wooden wolf whispering of old chains breaking or tightening. Custody felt like safety under his roof, yes, but the bars were velvet-trapped iron, and the king's protection demanded a price she wasn't ready to name. Envoys plotted beyond the walls, nobles schemed within, and her shifts echo rippled prophecies no one could ignore. Change the rules, her beast urged, or be crushed. Merrick posted outside her door, a silent sentinel, while Ivo's next gift slipped under at midnight, a ribbon from the king's own cloak, tied in a bow. Lies clutched it, breath catching, the fragile bridge widening even as the cage contracted. Victor's choice had bought time, but time bled consequences, and her stubborn heart refused to bow, even to the loneliness mirroring her own. Liza's fingers tightened around the ribbon as the door burst open, Merrick's bulk filling the frame. Dawn light sliced through the bars on her window, but no mercy softened his scarred face. Council summons. Now, the king's patience is threadbare. She rose without a word, the silk bow burning against her palm like a brand. 5 years of stitching shadows into gowns had honed her to silence, but the white wolf inside clawed at its cage, scenting the trap before she stepped into it. Merrick marched her through corridors thick with whispering courtiers, their eyes like needles on her skin, until the grand doors to the throne room groaned wide. King Victor sat at the head of the obsidian council table, his presence a gravitational pull that bent every spine but hers. Vampire lords flanked him, pale faces etched with old grudges, fingers drumming on chalices of blood-laced wine. The air reeked of polished silver and suppressed hunger. Ivo huddled in a corner alcove, small hands twisting a scrap of fabric, his mute gaze flicking to her like a lifeline. Lies Marin, Victor's voice rolled out, low and commanding, locking every eye on her. Sabotage festers in my palace stores, poisoned casks, tampered wards. Your lichened senses will root it out. You hunt with me today, nose to the stone, no deviations. Murmurs rippled. A lord with a hawkish nose sneered, a half-breed cur for royal work, she'll bolt or bite. Compliant, Victor added, his crimson eyes pinning her unblinking, or the council decides your leash shortens to a noose. The word snapped something in her. Compliant, like the pack that sold her, like the court that chained her. Heat surged up her spine, wolf fangs ghosting her gums. She stepped forward, chin high, voice cutting the hush. No, I hunt on my terms or not at all. You want my nose, earn it. I bow to no king's whim, not when it smells like bait. Gasps choked the air. A lady's chalice clattered. Merk tensed beside her, hand on his sword hilt. Victor's face didn't shift, but the temperature plunged, his power coiling like smoke. "Defiance in my counsel," he said softly, lethally. "You mistake curiosity for weakness, seamstress." "It's not mistake," she shot back, heart hammering but feet planted. "It's survival. Use me as a tool, fine, but don't leash the wolf you unleashed." Silence crushed the room. Ivo's wide eyes darted between them, breath held. Then Victor rose, slow as a predator unfolding, and the council shrank back. "Very well, hunt, but fail, and your terms mean nothing." He waved a hand. "Dismissed all but the guard captain and the ward. We move now." They dragged her to the Undercroft stores, a labyrinth of vaulted stone beneath the palace, lit by flickering iron lanterns. Dust motes danced in the chill, and the scents hit her like fists. Rot-masked wine, metallic tang of sabotage, layers of fierce sweat from hurried cleaners. Victor led, his long coat brushing her arm in the narrow passage, too close, his clean cedar and blood scent invading her space. Nose to nose, as promised. Merk shadowed them, Ivo trailing with clutched fists. "Scent it," Victor ordered, gesturing to a row of sealed casks. His proximity prickled her skin, power imbalance a live wire between them. Lies knelt, suppressing the wolf's eager whine. She dragged air deep, oak barrels clean but one. Off. There, third from left. Nightshade distillate laced recent, 2 days old. Handled by gloves, but the handler sweats ambition. Eastern wing scent, vassal lord's lackey. Victor's gaze bored into her as she worked, lingering too long on the flex of her throat when she breathed deep. "Precise. Continue." She ignored the heat crawling her neck, moving rack to rack. Ivo wandered ahead, small fingers tracing a rusted door in the far wall, sealed archive chute forgotten. It creaked under his push, hinges groaning like bones. The wolf surged without warning. Trap iron jaws, pressure plate. Ivo's foot hit it. Lies lunged, slamming into the boy as the door yawned wide, spiked bars crashing down. Her shoulder took the brunt, pain exploding white-hot, but she rolled them clear. The bars slammed shut inches from her heel, grinding stone. Ivo whimpered against her chest, unharmed. She held him tight, wolf instinct raging, protect the young, the vulnerable, while forcing it down, breaths ragged. No shift. Not here. Not with eyes on her. Victor was there in a blur, hauling the bars aside with bare hands, metal screeching in protest. His eyes locked on hers, shock fracturing his iron control for a split second, raw, unguarded. "Restraint," he murmured, almost to himself. "You could have torn it open wild." "But I didn't." She stood, Ivo clinging, blood trickling from her torn sleeve. "Control isn't compliance, it's choice." Merk hauled the door fully open, grunting. "Clever trap." Saboteurs marking territory. Inside, scrolls and ledgers tumbled, but her nose caught it again. Eastern vassal, confirmed. Victor set Ivo down gently, the boy's hand finding Liza's in silent thanks. "Mark the site," he told Merk. "We press." Hours blurred in the dim warrens, her nose peeling back layers of deceit. Tampered locks, false ledgers pointing to border spies. Victor stayed close, his questions sharp, body heat a constant brush in the tight spaces. Each time their eyes met, tension coiled tighter, his starvation for something real cracking through the monarch's mask. At the final cache, amid shattered crates, something glinted. A carved silver talon, hooked and intricate, nestled in the debris. Lies froze, pulse spiking. It matched the one from her dream, no, from the ribbons not last night, Ivo's gifts, Victor's mark. She pocketed it before Victor turned, but unease gnawed. A token, left for her to find. Why? Back in the corridor, Ivo scampered ahead again, but Merk gripped her arm, pulling her into a shadowed alcove as Victor consulted a map ahead. "Talk," the captain growled, voice low thunder. "You're no ordinary seamstress. That knows that save, lichen through and through. Who did you betray to land here? Spill, or I drag your secrets to him myself." Lies yanked free, shoulder throbbing. "Betray, try survive." Truth clawed up small pieces only. Pack cast me out. White wolf rare feared, they hunted me for it. Vampires bought the peace. I stitch to eat, that's all you get. His eyes narrowed, weighing her. Half-truths, I've seen your kind turn. Rebellion scars run deep, lost brothers to lichen blades. You survive by selling out. She met his stare, wolf fire banked but burning. I sold nothing, they sold me. Keep your mistrust, Captain, guard your king, I'll guard the boy. Merrick's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, conflict etching his face. For now. He glanced at Ivo, then Victor, protector's instinct warring with duty. They emerged into the main stores, Victor waiting. His eyes flicked to her pocket, did he know, before he nodded. Saboteur pinned, Eastern Lord's man, council will feast on that. But as they turned to leave, another glint, the silver talon wedged in a crate seam identical, placed, watching, Liza's breath caught. It appeared again at the archive door's hinge when she checked it last, third time. Each one a hook in her gut, stirring the loneliness she'd buried. Victor's gaze lingered on her across the room, heavy with unspoken hunger. Not for blood, for the wildness she refused to tame. He approached as Merrick herded Ivo away, voice pitched for her alone. The talons mark my path. Yours now, too. Defy me again, lies Marin, and see what breaks first, rules or us. Her fingers closed around the latest one, sharp edge biting palm. Stubborn heart thundering, she didn't bow. But the bridge widened, fragile and fraught, pulling her toward the monster who mirrored her scars. Time bled on and the court closed in. Liza's palm bled where the dagger's edge had kissed it, the pain a sharp anchor as she shoved the crumpled missive into her apron. Footsteps echoed down the shadowed servants' corridor, Merrick's heavy tread, and she lunged, grabbing his armored sleeve before he could pass. Captain. Now alone. He halted, gray eyes narrowing under the torchlight's flicker, his hand instinctively dropping to his sword hilt. The corridor was empty, but voices murmured from the grand hall beyond, lichen envoys and vampire lords circling like wolves over fresh kill. Merrick nodded once, steering her into a disused alcove piled with dusty tapestries, the air thick with moth and stone rot. He blocked the entrance with his bulk, face unreadable. What madness, girl! You've got the king's eye and half the court baying for your pelt. Her breath hitched, the words clawing up her throat after 5 years buried. She pressed her back to the cold wall, white wolf stirring uneasily beneath her skin, a phantom itch. My pack leader Rorik, he sold me. To your kind, not for debts or raids. To save his own head from the border skirmishes. The confession cracked her voice, shame flooding hot as the blood trickling down her wrist. He knew what I was, White Wolf. Said I'd fetch a king's ransom, keep the vampires off our lands. Left me chained in the square like meat. Her fists clenched, nails biting crescents into her palms. I've hidden it since, swore I'd never shift, never let them weaponize me again, but now, they're coming for me. Merrick's jaw tightened, a muscle feathering along the scar that bisected his cheek. He glanced toward the hall where the envoy's guttural demands echoed faintly. Rorik, that cur, knew his name from the old treaties. His voice dropped, rough with something like pity or rage. You're no one's chattel, lies, not anymore, but the king's claimed custody, that buys time. He gripped her shoulder, firm but not bruising, his calloused thumb brushing the blood on her skin. Breathe, we'll hold the line. She nodded, throat burning, but the weight lifted fractionally. Merrick pulled away as a page's shout cut the air. The envoys demand audience. And he was gone, leaving her trembling in the alcove's gloom. In the royal wing's heart, Victor paced the vaulted chamber, moonlight slicing through arrow-slit windows like accusations. The fire in the massive hearth spat embers, mirroring the unrest gnawing his gut. Merrick stood at rigid attention by the door, but Victor waved him closer, the captain's boots thudding softly on the fur rugs. Ivo slept curled in an alcove bed, the boy's small chest rising and falling, oblivious to the storm. Speak plain, Captain, Victor growled, halting to grip the mantle. His fangs ached, hunger a constant shadow, but worse was the fracture inside. The loneliness that whispered of bargains sealed in blood, executions that haunted his nights. The girl's white wolf changes everything. Envoys at the gates, factions whispering rebellion. Advise me. Merc's gaze flicked to Ivo, then back, unflinching. Sire, she's no threat. Hidden at 5 years, stitched your court's finery without a whisper. But the lichens claim blood right. Yield her and you look weak. Keep her and they howl invasion. Victor's laugh was bitter, hollow. He turned, eyes burning crimson in the low light. Weak. That's the lie they peddle. He dragged a hand through his dark hair, voice dropping to a raw edge only Merc ever heard. If I let her in, if I let any of them in, the hunger wins. Loneliness too. I've buried too many attachments under throne and fang. One crack and I unravel. Become the monster they already fear. The admission hung heavy, his chest tight as if staked. Ivo stirred, murmuring soundlessly, and Victor's gaze softened a fraction before hardening again. But I won't feed the court's bloodlust on an innocent. Merc nodded, a ghost of understanding in his eyes. Then block them. Royal prerogative, it's gray, but it's yours. Victor straightened, decision crystallizing like frost. Summon the council, now. The grand hall thrummed with tension. Chandeliers dripping crystal light over assembled lords. Vampire elders in black velvet, lichen envoys snarling from the far end. Their furred cloaks reeking of pine and pack musk. Lies hovered at the servants' balcony above, needlework abandoned, heart slamming as guards herded her down. She was the prize, exposed, white wolf's power humming traitorously under her skin. King Victor entered like a storm, crimson cloak billowing, crown a jagged shadow on his brow. Silence fell, heavy as a blade. The lead envoy, a hulking lichen with silver-streaked muzzle, Rorik's second, stepped forward. Alpha King, the white wolf is pack-born. Rorik claims her by blood law. Yield her or war, choose your borders. Victor's eyes swept the hall, lingering on lies for a breath-stealing instant, protective, fierce, before he raised a hand. Royal prerogative, Lies Marin serves this court. Her debt is mine to hold. Murmurs erupted, elders hissing, envoys growling. Lady Alara, a sharp-eyed vampire countess, shot to her feet. Sire, this invites lichen fangs at our gates. Tradition demands her head or theirs. He didn't flinch, voice steel. Tradition bends to my word, dismissed. The gavel cracked like bone, but backlash rippled, glares from the factions, whispers of treason. A lesser lord spat, the king's gone soft for a seamstress bitch, loud enough for echoes. Liza's breath caught from her shadowed vantage, witnessing the fracture. Victor had shielded her, not with cruelty's mask, but a deliberate stand. Costly. The court's fury coiled around him like smoke, yet his gaze found hers again, steady amid the chaos. Not malice. Protection carved from his own isolation. Guards hustled the envoys out amid snarls, but the damage lingered, alliances cracking, eyes on Victor like daggers. Hours bled into midnight. Lies found herself escorted not to the cells, but the royal apartment's antechamber, Ivo's small form dozing on a cushioned bench nearby. The boy stirred as she entered, mute eyes lighting with shy recognition. He'd trailed her in the sewing rooms before, offering silent company. She knelt, ruffling his hair gently. Easy, little one. The inner door creaked. Victor stood there, alone, crown discarded, shirt unlaced at the throat, revealing pale scars from wars long buried. No guards, just them, Ivo's soft breaths the only witness. Seamstress. His voice was low, edged with fatigue. The court's venom spreads, you've seen it. She rose, chin lifting despite the power chasm yawning between them, Vampire King, her jailer and savior. You blocked them for me. The words escaped raw. Her confession to Merc echoed in her mind, mirroring his own fractures she'd glimpsed. Stubborn heart thudded, but the bridge held, fragile. He stepped closer, not touching, but close enough her skin prickled. A lingering look, his crimson gaze tracing her face, breath pausing as if tasting her pulse. Prerogative has teeth, they bite back. Protective instinct flared in his stance, warring with the loneliness she now recognized, the same shame she'd named to Merk. Your past. Rorik's betrayal, Merk told me. Not accusation, but shared weight. Lies swallowed, vulnerability cracking open. Trust flickered dangerous. He sold me to survive. You could have let them take me. Why shield a half-breed servant? Victor's hand hovered near her cheek, consent in the pause, dropping only when she didn't flinch. Because some scars mirror mine. Ivo watched them, perceptive eyes wide, a quiet bridge in the tension. The court pressed in, factions plotting, envoys rallying, but here intimacy bloomed fragile, high stakes. Her wolf quieted, considering surrender. Outside, a distant howl pierced the night. Pressure tightened. But Victor's gaze held hers, starving for connection, and for the first time, Lies didn't pull away. Liza's fingers dug into the seam of her apron as the throne room doors slammed open, a cadre of nobles spilling in like spilled blood. Lord Draven, his hawkish face twisted in outrage, led the charge, flanked by lesser lords whose eyes gleamed with opportunistic hunger. Favoritism poisons the throne, your majesty, Draven bellowed, thrusting a clenched fist toward Victor on his dais. This half-breed wolf, your seamstress pet, shifts before us unpunished, and now you shield her. We demand the right of binding on her line. Victor's hand tightened on the arm of his throne, knuckles whitening, but his voice cut like a blade through the murmurs. My prerogative stands. Lies Marin serves this court. No right will touch her. The room erupted. Lies stood frozen at the chamber's edge, heart hammering against her ribs, the distant howl from moments ago in Victor's private solar still echoing in her ears. She'd barely caught her breath from that gaze, his eyes raw, pulling at something buried in her, when Merk had dragged her here for safeguarding. Now the court turned on her, their whispers a venomous tide. White wolf, omen of chaos, pack horse sold to vampires. She wouldn't bow, not to them, not even to him, though his protection wrapped around her like chains disguised as silk. Draven stepped forward, robes swirling, and unfurled a brittle parchment with a flourish. Prerogative be damned. Ancient scrolls from the Lycan archives, verified by my scholars, name her bloodline. Marin of the White Fang, descendant of the ritual binders. Her kind forged the old pacts that nearly toppled kings. Shift her now, bind her power, or let her unravel us all. The factions demand it, gasps rippled. Liza's stomach dropped. White Fang, her grandmother's whispered curse, the line weaponized in pack wars, forced to channel moon-mad rituals that burned out their souls. She'd hidden it for 5 years, stitching hems in shadows to forget. Now it stained the air, politicized into a blade against Victor. Eyes flicked between her and the king, testing his resolve. A noblewoman hissed, her line bred the beasts that slaughtered my kin. Punish them all. Victor's gaze flicked to Lie's brief, scorching before he rose, shadows coiling at his feet like loyal hounds. Enough! The scrolls prove nothing but old grudges. She stays. Merk shifted beside her, his hand on his sword hilt, a wall of scarred muscle. Eyes on me if you doubt his word, he growled low to the nearest lord, but tension crackled. Lies felt it. The court's loyalty fracturing factions, Draven's purists, the border hawks, smelling weakness in Victor's mercy. The attack came without warning. A shadow detached from the throng, a guard in Draven's livery, blade flashing silver in the torchlight. He lunged straight for Liza's throat, slipping past the outer ring amid the chaos. For the pure blood, he snarled. Merk exploded into motion, shoving Liza behind him. Steel clanged as he parried, but the assassin twisted, driving a poisoned dagger into Merk's side. Blood bloomed dark on the captain's uniform. Liza lunged instinctively, her wolf surging beneath her skin, claws half extended as she raked the attacker's arm. He howled, staggering back, but Merk finished it, sword through the gut, dropping the man in a gurgling heap. The room stilled, shock rippling outward. Merk slumped against a pillar, hand clamped over the wound, face ashen. Bastards! Draven's man, he rasped, eyes locking on Lies. Run if I fall. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing her apron to the gash. Warm blood soaked through, metallic and thick. Hold on, you idiot. You don't get to play hero for me. Guilt clawed her, his loyalty bought with her exposure. Merk, who'd grumbled about babysitting her but shared quiet watches, trading war stories from his rebellion scars, now paying her price. Victor descended the dais in a blur, fangs bared, eyes blazing crimson. The court shrank back as he seized the nearest courtier, a sniveling aide to Draven who'd hesitated too long in the fray. You knew, Victor snarled, voice a thunderclap. He lifted the man one-handed by the throat, veins blackening under his skin as hunger, real, feral, flared unchecked. Your Majesty, the courtier choked, legs kicking. Victor's control snapped. With a roar that shook the chandeliers, he hurled the man across the room. Bones cracked on impact with the marble wall, the body slid down, neck at an unnatural angle, dead before it hit. Silence crashed, heavier than the kill. Blood trickled from Victor's lip where he'd bitten through in rage, his chest heaving. Too harsh, too public. The court stared, horror mingling with calculation, the king's moral line, his refusal of reckless blood just shattered. Draven recovered first, voice oily. See, she unravels even you, sire. Favoritism breeds tyrants. Lies met Victor's eyes across the blood-smeared floor. Starving, yes, but fractured now, his authority cracked like the corpse at his feet. Ivo, the king's mute ward, peeked from behind a curtain in the royal alcove, wide eyes darting between them, small hands twisting his tunic. The boy had trailed Victor earlier, clinging like a shadow. Now he looked ready to bolt. Healers rushed Merk away under guard, Liza's pleas ignored as hands pulled her back. Victor waved her toward the side doors, his nod imperious. To my quarters, now. She obeyed, pulse racing, the court's glares burning her back. Private chambers loomed, opulent, shadowed, Ivo already there, perched on a velvet settee with a forgotten toy soldier. The boy signed rapidly. Blood. Safe. His trauma-mute gaze pierced her, perceptive beyond words. Lies knelt by him, forcing calm. Merk's tough, kings, handling it, but doubt gnawed. Victor's tenderness hid there in Ivo's care, but tonight it had cost. The door burst open. Victor stormed in, slamming it shut, pacing like a caged beast. Blood still flecked his cuffs, his eyes, dark now, fixed on her with that same starving pull. They'll push harder. Draven's scroll, its leverage. Your bloodline ties to rituals that could bind lichens to vampire will, or break it. She stood, chin lifting despite the tremor in her knees. Then let them bind me, not my price to drag you down. He closed the distance in a blink, hand cupping her jaw, not force but unyielding. Consent hovered, electric. She could pull away, and he knew it. No, his thumb brushed her pulse, breath ragged. I rewrite the law tonight. Secret decree. Seamstresses of proven service gain sanctuary. Covers you. Betrays every tradition I've upheld. Liza's breath caught. Betrayal for her. A king who'd executed for less, now fracturing his court to shield one stubborn wolf. Ivo watched, inching closer, small hands slipping into hers. Found family, fragile as glass. Why? She whispered, voice cracking. Power imbalance screamed, his fangs inches from her throat. But his eyes begged connection, human beneath the monster. Because losing control to you, Victor trailed off, forehead pressing to hers, a pause heavy with unspoken wars. Feels like living. Outside, howls multiplied, factions rallying. Blood cost, decorum shredded. Her choice loomed, trust his rewrite or run and doom them both. Ivo squeezed her hand tighter, bridge in the storm. Lies didn't pull away. Lies yanked her hand from Ivo's, the boy's wide eyes burning into her back as the throne room exploded. Courtiers surged forward, fangs bared, their chants a venomous roar. White wolf, abomination. Execute the beast. The high priestess, robe stained with ritual ash, thrust a jagged obsidian blade skyward, her voice slicing through the din. By ancient blood law, Lys Marin bears the mark of the cursed lineage. White fur, silver eyes, harbinger of pack wars that felled our sires. She is no servant, she is the blade at our throats. Lys's knees buckled under the weight of exposed shame, her suppressed wolf clawing inside her ribs. 5 years of stitching shadows in the palace underbelly, hiding the shift that could summon old pack horrors, gone in a breath. Faces she'd mended gowns for twisted into snarls, loyalists who'd nodded at her in halls now baying for chains. Victor loomed on the dais, his throne a spike of black iron, face carved from ice, but his gaze locked on her, unreadable storm. She stumbled back, pulse thundering, the priestess's blade now dripping symbolic venom toward her feet. Parade her, brand her pelt for the borders, let the Lycans see our justice. The crowd's fury crested, goblets shattering, a noble lunging with claws extended. Lys dodged, heart slamming, Ivo's small cry lost in the howl. No more. Not as symbol, not as weapon. She bolted for the arched doors, shoving past a guard who hesitated, too late, her seamstress skirts ripping as she vaulted the threshold. The palace edge blurred into night, marble corridors bleeding into shadowed gardens, then the iron fence gnawing at the wild forest beyond. Lys didn't think, didn't plead. Trust his rewrite. His court would eat her alive first. She scaled the fence with lichen claws punching through gloves, dropping into damp earth that smelled of freedom and doom. Branches whipped her face as she plunged into the trees, wolf rising hot in her veins, urging full shift. Run. Doom them both. Better her alone than chained for their games. Behind the howls shifted, court packs rallying, but one horse thundered closer, too fast. No, Victor couldn't. She pushed harder, lungs burning, the forest thickening to a maze of thorns and mist. From the dais, Victor froze, the priestess's words still echoing as Lys's form vanished through the doors. Rejection. Her eyes, silver-flecked, wild, hadn't begged his intervention, they'd fled him. Panic clawed his gut, ancient hunger twisting with something sharper. Loss. The court bayed louder, nobles pressing the guards, demanding blood to slake the threat. His decree earlier, shielding her as ward, had cracked the fragile peace. Now this flight unraveled it all. Seal the borders. His voice cracked like thunder, freezing the room. Courtiers halted, eyes wide. No pursuit by pack or guard. Let the white wolf flee, mark her traitor, outlaw beyond the veil. Any who harbor her forfeit their fangs. Harsh. Necessary. Placate them, regain control. But as the words landed, a hollow ache spread. Her gone, his protection twisted to exile. She'd never return. His fists clenched on the throne arms, splinters of iron biting palms. Loneliness, that old blade, sank deeper. Merc, at the dais edge, felt the order like a gut punch. Victor's gaze flicked to him, cold command, no quarter. Lys, the stubborn stitcher who'd patched his wounds without question, now branded for a lineage she never wielded. He knew that forest, knew her scent from guard shifts. Break the king? Aye, for once. He spun on heel, cloak snapping, ignoring the king's sharp inhale. Guards parted instinctively as Merc vaulted the rail, boots pounding marble. "Captain," a noble barked, but Merc's sword hissed free, parting the crowd. Outside he seized a stable mount, vaulting bareback as hooves churned gravel. Victor's roar chased him. "Sauron, stand down." But Merc spurred into the night, wind tearing his oath to shreds. She believed in nothing here, he'd prove one soul did. Lys crashed through underbrush, skirt shredded to rags, the wolf half-shifted, claws, heightened senses, but no full pelt to outrun vampiric speed. Moonlight speared the canopy, her white fur itched beneath skin, forbidden, irredeemable. Sold by her pack, hidden here, exposed now as curse. Victor's eyes had promised rewrite, but his court branded truth, threat. Better wild death than paraded, used. A horse crashed behind, sent hitting her, leather steel Merc. She whirled, fangs bared instinctive, crouched low. "Back off, Captain, King's decree, I'm traitor now." Merc reined in hard, horse snorting steam, his face grim under scarred brow. He dismounted slow, hands open, sword sheathed. "I, traitor, and I'm defying him to fetch you back." She laughed bitter, backing into thorns that drew blood. "Fetch, for chains, parade me like the priestess wants. No chains." His voice rough, eyes steady, protector's fracture showing. King's panicked, lashed out to save face. "Court wants your head or your power, he'll lose the throne warring both. But you stubborn fool, you're no abomination. Patched my arm after that border skirmish, asked nothing. I trust you with my scars, now trust me with yours." Liza's breath hitched, wolf whining inside. "Trust." Pack sold her, vampires caged her, but Merrick's stance, no grab, no force, cracked the wall. He froze, watched me run, his decree outlaw. Panic, not rejection. Merrick stepped closer, forest hush amplifying his words. "He shielded Ivo through you, sees family where court sees threat, but he'll break before admitting it. Come back, force his hand proper." Hooves echoed distant, rallied guards. Lies glanced back, forest endless black, irredeemable or bridge. Ivo's hand squeeze flashed, Victor's lingering gaze in chambers, tender under ruthlessness. Doomed them both, but running sealed it. "Not yet." She straightened, claws retracting. "Tell him." His force pushes me away. Merrick nodded once, sharp, remounting. "He knows." But he won't stop trying. He wheeled the horse, vanishing into mist, leaving her alone with the howls rising. In the throne room, Victor paced the dais, courtiers' cheers for his decree ringing hollow. Merrick's defiance burned, loyal captain, broken for her. Lies gone, bond severed at seam. His attempts, protection, intimacy glimpsed in stolen moments with Ivo between them, pushed her to flight. Loneliness roared back, guilt over past blood bargains paling against this fresh wound. Court safe, throne intact but hollow. He sank to the throne, eyes on the doors, believing it over. She'd never bow, he'd never yield. Lies sank against a tree, thorns biting, tears hot on cheeks. Merrick's words lingered, but shame won. White wolf, weapon, traitor, irredeemable. Victor's decree confirmed it, his force, wrong kind, shattered the fragile thread. Ivo's bridge snapped, found family myth. She curled tight, wolf howling silent inside, bond broken clean. Over. Outside, factions howled triumph, blood cost mounting. Decorum gone, palace edges frayed. Ivo slipped back to shadows, clutched a torn seamstress scrap, mute eyes knowing the storm's new fracture. Lies burst through the palace's shattered east gate, the iron screeching under her shoulder as rival nobles' blades clashed with royal guards in the courtyard beyond. Lichen howls ripped the night from the outer walls, reprisal fangs sinking into vampire throats, while inside, screams echoed from the grand hall where Ivo hid. She could vanish now, melt into the chaos as she'd plotted for years, but the boy's mute terror clawed her gut. Those half-stitched gowns for the wards lay trampled in the melee, silk ruined by spilled blood, and Ivo clutched her scrap like a lifeline. Her boots pounded marble slick with gore. Captain Merrick barreled past a knot of traitorous lords, his sword cleaving one's arm clean off, but two more pinned him against a pillar. Lichens vaulted the breached walls, furred hulks slamming into vampire sentries, their reprisal for old blood debts turning the court to slaughter. Ivo's shadow flickered at the hall's arched doors, tiny, frozen, a noble's dagger glinting toward him. Lies didn't think. She ripped her seamstress apron free, bones cracking as the white wolf surged free in a blaze of silver fur. 5 years buried, the shift tore screams from her throat, but she launched into the fray, jaws snapping the noble's wrist before he reached the boy. Ivo scrambled back, eyes wide on her wolf form, but he didn't run. He grabbed a fallen gown, draping it over a trembling ward child peeking from the shadows. The court erupted. "White wolf!" "Kill it!" A lord's shout cut through the din, his allies wheeling from their coup to converge on her. Lichens paused mid-maul, sniffing the air, their alpha's grudge against her kind flashing in yellow eyes. They'd use her or gut her. Merrick staggered up, blood sheeting his face, and drove his blade into a lichen's flank to buy her space. Lies back, That's the king's call. But Victor was there, striding from the throne dais like judgment carved in obsidian. His crimson eyes locked on her wolf, hunger flickering beneath the iron control that had ruled unchallenged for centuries. The coup's vanguard, 5 nobles sworn to his rival bloodlines, circled the throne, swords raised, while lichen claws gouged the outer barricades. Ivo darted to Victor's side, clutching the soiled gown scrap, his small hand fisting the king's cloak. Lise snarled, planting herself between Ivo and the nearest lord, her white pelt matted with fresh kills. She wouldn't weaponize the wolf, not for slaughter, not like her old pack had twisted her into. Defense only, shield the boy, the children huddled behind fallen silk. A lichen lunged over the nobles, jaws wide for her throat, old pack scent marking him as her betrayer's kin, and she met it midair, rolling it into the stone, fangs tearing just enough to hurl it back broken. Victor's voice boomed, halting the melee like a thunderclap. Enough! He stepped forward, hand raised, and the vampires froze, loyal guards lowering blades, traitors smirking triumph. Lise shifted back in a gasp of agony, naked and heaving on the bloodied floor, her skin prickling under 100 stares. Ivo pressed the gown scrap into her palm, a silent claim. The lead noble, Lord Draven, face twisted with coup's greed, laughed low. Your pet wolf seals it, Aelur, the court's fracturing. Hybrids like her, banned by your own edict. Feed on her publicly or we claim the throne and the boy's head. Lichen growls swelled outside, battering the weakened gates. Victor's gaze bored into Lise, the starvation in it raw not for blood, but the connection he'd glimpsed in stolen nights. She met it stubborn, chin lifted, refusing to cower despite the power crushing her lungs. He could drain her now, ancient right unchallenged, bind her as thrall or sport to rally his fracturing court. His jaw clenched. The air thickened, every eye on him as traitors edged closer, lichens howling reprisal promises. Ivo tugged his sleeve, mute plea vibrating through the silence. Victor extended a hand not to seize but to shield her. No, the word cracked like stone. By my blood oath I renounce it. No king feeds on or hunts his subjects, hybrid or not. Lise Marin stands protected. The law changes now. Draven's smirk died. Madness, you'll lose the borders, the pack's will. Attack, Victor snarled, eyes blazing crimson and power uncoiled from him like shadow chains. Traitors crumpled, throats crushed without touch. Loyalists surged forward, blades flashing. Merc cleaved through the last lichen vanguard at the gates, sealing the breach with guard lines. Lise rose shakily, clutching Ivo close, her wolf's heat fading to exhausted tremble. The court stared, nobles whispering fracture, guards exchanging stunned glances. Victor had sacrificed absolute rule, his standing gutted. Rivals would circle now, emboldened by the crack in tradition. The clash sputtered out. Bodies slumped across the hall, lichens rooted back to shadowed woods, traitors dragged to cells. Blood pooled around trampled gowns, the wards peeking out to claim their ruined silks. Lise pulled a cloak from Merc's outstretched arm, wrapping it tight, her voice hoarse. You didn't have to. Victor's hand brushed her shoulder, light as consent, pulling back when she tensed. I chose, cost be damned. Up close, exhaustion carved his face, guilt from old executions warring with the relief of her nearness. Ivo nestled between them, fingers tracing the gown scrap stitches, binding the fracture. Merc wiped his blade, eyeing Victor warily. New terms, then. I keep my post if hybrids walk free, no hunts, no bargains. Victor nodded once sharp. Earned but tested, and you're first to fall. Lise stepped forward, voice steady despite the ache. I stand for Ivo, the children, not owned. Boundaries I sow, I guard, but no chains. See the wolf, don't wield it. He held her gaze, the loneliness cracking open. Agreed. No owning. The court nobles muttered, but none challenged, not yet. Ivo smiled faintly, first in moons, and tugged them toward the dais. Dawn bled gray through arrow slits as they rebuilt amid wreckage. Merck posted doubled guards under hybrid edicts, his pragmatic loyalty holding the line. Ivo curled at Victor's feet on the mended throne, gown scrap tucked in his pocket like talisman. Lies knelt nearby, mending a ward's torn silk, her white wolf secret now shield, not shame. Victor watched her, the power imbalance raw in every glance. The king starved no more, but forever altered. Whispers spread. The court would learn or shatter trying. Lies met his eyes once, stubborn fire unbowed, and the fracture knit into something fiercer.